Welcome to Stories Room. Enjoy listening and don't forget to subscribe. It all started almost imperceptibly. Emily had always been active and self-assured, and her work trips had never seemed unusual. However, in recent months she began leaving on business trips more frequently, attending conferences and weekend seminars she had never signed up for before. One day, as she hurriedly packed her suitcase for yet another work trip, I noticed her movements were unnervingly anxious, and her gaze was evasive. "Emily, are you all right?" I asked, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. "Of course, Andrew," she replied with a slight smile, though I saw a shadow of worry flicker in her eyes. "It's just a lot of work." I tried to trust her words, thinking, maybe I'm overreacting? After all, she had always been devoted. Yet, the more I observed her changed behavior, the louder the inner voice grew, whispering that something was terribly wrong. Every day, I noticed more small details. Emily began to guard her phone as if it held a secret. In the past, she never hesitated to show me her messages, but now, if I ever picked it up by accident, she would snatch it away and give me a look filled with distrust. One evening, while we sat down for dinner, I couldn't help but ask, "Why do you seem so reluctant to let me see your phone today? Is something wrong?" "It's just personal, Andrew," she replied, a note of irritation in her tone. "Stop checking up on everything." Her words did little to ease my mind. I felt a growing anxiety inside me, every new behavior reinforcing that inner warning. You know, something isn't right. Later that evening, I observed her engaging in an unusually long phone conversation while taking a walk around the neighborhood. Normally, her calls with her mother lasted no more than 15 minutes, but now they stretched on for nearly an hour. I sat in the living room, listening as she murmured softly into the phone, wondering, what could she possibly be discussing? Those long hours of solitude, filled with suspicion, only deepened my doubts about her fidelity. The internal conflict was tearing me apart. I couldn't accept the thought that the woman I loved might betray me, but my intuition insisted otherwise. Finally, on one gloomy evening when I could bear it no longer, I made the decision. I would contact a private investigator. It was a painful choice, for I never wanted to imagine that I might have to confirm my worst fears. I dialed the number recommended by a friend. On the other end of the line, a calm and assured male voice greeted me. "Hello, Andrew. My name is David. Please, tell me what seems to be the problem." "David, I've begun to suspect that my wife, Emily, is cheating on me. Her behavior has become strange, constant business trips, secrecy with her phone, long late-night calls. I need to know the truth," I managed, my voice trembling with emotion. "I understand," David replied, listening intently. "Let's try to gather some evidence. You must continue behaving as usual, without letting on your suspicions. I'll handle the surveillance." For a brief moment, I felt a spark of hope. Finally, I would have the clarity I needed. Time passed, and my suspicions grew ever more insistent. Emily was about to leave on another business trip, this time to the far side of the country, and most hurtfully, just before her birthday. I couldn't understand why she was so eager to leave at such a crucial moment. That night, as she prepared to depart, I watched her from the edge of our bed. Every movement, every whispered phone conversation, felt strangely out of place. "Emily, are you absolutely sure everything is all right?" I asked cautiously as she glanced my way for a moment. "Of course, Andrew," she replied, though I detected a hint of annoyance in her voice. "It's just another business trip." I nodded silently, while inside, doubt swirled relentlessly. That very night, after she had left, I noticed that she had reset her laptop, citing technical glitches. But I knew such an action wasn't without purpose. The timestamps I later discovered made no sense unless she was trying to hide something important. A week later, I received a call from David. His voice was calm, but carried an unyielding certainty. "Andrew, I have information you'll want to see," he said. My heart pounded. I urged him to send the photos. When I opened the file, I couldn't believe my eyes. There was Emily, entering an elegant hotel with a man I had never seen before. In one photograph, they were holding hands. In another, they pressed the elevator button together, their gazes locked in an unmistakably intimate exchange. My world shattered. Anger, heartbreak, and betrayal surged within me. I could hardly comprehend. How could this be? I always believed we were happy together. Where did it all go wrong? David, are you sure it's her? I asked, barely managing to contain the anguish in my voice. Yes, Andrew. I have irrefutable evidence, he replied, his tone final, as if pronouncing a verdict. Unable to bear it any longer, I sent Emily a message. I know what you've been doing. I have the proof. I attached the photographs, even though I could hardly believe that I had reached this point. It was her birthday, and I felt compelled to repay the pain she had inflicted upon me, even if it meant ruining her celebration. That evening, as I sat at the table grappling with my swirling emotions, my phone rang. Emily's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated for a moment, but my inner voice demanded I answer. It was time to confront the truth. Andrew, what's happening? She asked as I finally picked up the phone. What's happening? The evidence, Emily. The photos. I replied, my voice trembling with barely contained rage. It's not true, she stuttered, and I heard genuine panic in her tone. Listen, I can explain everything. Explain? How do you explain going to hotels with another man, acting as if you've already started a new life? I interrupted, my voice thick with sorrow and anger. That's not what it is. She began, struggling for words. Tell me the truth, Emily. Tell me what's really going on, or I won't be able to live with this any longer. There was a long pause, then she whispered, All right, I'll explain. We arranged to meet at our favorite cafe, where once we had shared dreams of the future. I arrived first, clutching an envelope containing the photographs as if they could somehow justify the pain. After a while, Emily entered the cafe, her face pale and her eyes brimming with remorse. Andrew, she began as she sat down, I know you're hurting right now, and I want to try and explain. Taking a deep, heavy breath, I said, Explain to me how you can spend your nights in hotels with another man instead of with me? It's not as simple as that, she replied, her voice quivering. I felt like we were drifting apart, that I was losing myself in this marriage. Drifting apart? You always told me that we were in this together, that we could talk about anything. I tried, Andrew. But there were moments when I felt you weren't really listening, that you were too preoccupied with your own doubts, she murmured. Doubts? I replied bitterly. Don't you remember how you once shared every feeling with me, as if I were your closest friend? I remember, she said softly. But something changed. I began to feel that I wasn't getting the understanding and attention I needed, and when I found myself alone in a strange city, I sought comfort in another's arms. The pain inside me tightened like a vice, and that comfort turned out to be cheap, Emily. I asked, my voice laden with sorrow. It was a mistake, she admitted, lowering her eyes. I wanted to escape, but I didn't know any other way. We sat in silence for a long moment, the ambient chatter and soft cafe music providing a painful backdrop to our unraveling story. After our meeting, I returned home in a state of deep confusion. Sitting alone in the kitchen with a cold cup of coffee in hand, I tried to make sense of how we had arrived at this devastating crossroads. My mind swirled with memories of happier times, days when we dreamed of a future together, when we laughed at the smallest things. All that now seemed distant and unattainable. I asked myself, what did I do wrong? Why didn't I notice that you, Emily, were becoming a stranger to me? There was no clear answer. A storm of emotions raged within me. Anger, resentment, sorrow, and disillusionment. I began writing in a journal, desperately trying to capture my swirling thoughts in words. Maybe I was too blind, too wrapped up in my own concerns. I wrote in one entry. But how could I have missed the signs, the evasive glances, the guarded phone, those long conversations? Now every little detail screams out as a harbinger of our inevitable downfall. Those reflections tormented me, plunging me deeper into my own thoughts. Every night, as I closed my eyes, I could see her face, and the face of that man, haunting my dreams. I felt as though I were being torn apart from the inside by the pain and shame. The next day, I met with David to discuss what steps I should take next. In a small, quiet office, he laid out my options with calm clarity. Andrew, You have solid evidence, he said. What do you plan to do now? I looked at him silently, struggling to gather my thoughts. I don't know, I finally said. I want a divorce, but at the same time, I feel such a profound emptiness. It's as if everything I knew is crumbling. That's understandable, David assured me. Sometimes the truth is painful, but it also frees you. Think about what's best for you in the long run. I nodded, though inside I was torn between the desire for revenge and the overwhelming sorrow of betrayal. That very night, I called my sister Laura. She had always been my pillar of support, and I knew I could find solace in her comforting words. Andrew, I just got your message, she said, her voice filled with concern. What's happened? Laura, my wife is cheating on me, I managed to say, feeling tears well up. Oh my God, Laura exclaimed, her tone heavy with sympathy. Are you sure? Did you do everything to check? Yes, I hired a private investigator, and now I have undeniable proof, I said, the weight of the revelation pressing on my shoulders. What are you going to do? She asked gently. I think I'm going to divorce her. But it hurts so much, Laura. I feel like I'm being torn to pieces. Andrew, remember, you deserve to be happy. This pain is temporary, and something better awaits you. We all support you, she said soothingly. Her words offered me a small measure of comfort, yet the emptiness inside remained. A few days after our conversation, I met Emily again, this time for a final discussion. We gathered in our once happy living room, a space now transformed into the stage for our tragedy. Emily, I began as I sat down across from her at the table, we need to talk. About what, exactly, Andrew? She asked, avoiding my gaze. About your affair. I can't continue to live in denial. I have proof, and I can't pretend anymore. For a moment, she froze. I saw fear and sorrow flood her eyes. Listen, She started, but I cut her off. Don't start, Emily. I know the truth. I'm done with lies and betrayal. Maybe we can try to fix things, she whispered, almost inaudibly. Fix things? How do you expect to fix something you've so thoroughly shattered? I demanded, my voice heavy with despair. I know I made a mistake, she continued, tears welling in her eyes. But perhaps if we start with an honest conversation. I could no longer bear her attempts at excuses. No, Emily. I can't trust you any longer. You've betrayed me at every turn. At that moment, I felt my heart break completely. I remembered all the times I had tried to believe in us, in our love, and now it had all turned to dust. You've already chosen your path, I said, barely managing to hold back tears. And I'm choosing to leave. Emily began to cry softly, her voice trembling as she pleaded, Please, Andrew, don't do this. But my decision was made. The conversation fell into a heavy silence, laden with regret for what had once been. In the following weeks, I plunged into a chaos of legal proceedings, dividing our property, and endless consultations with lawyers. Every morning began with a hollow ache, yet gradually I began to realize that perhaps this was the only path to freedom. My days became a blur of phone calls, meetings with attorneys, and long, exhausting conversations with friends who tried to console me. I started frequenting the gym to distract myself, and in solitude, I ran through the park, gathering my scattered thoughts. Each run became a form of meditation, a time to confront my emotions alone. After one particularly long run, I stopped on a bridge and softly said aloud, I must let go of this pain, or it will forever be a part of me. Those words echoed in the cold evening air, a promise that the journey to healing, though long, was possible. Family dinners became a saving grace for me. One evening, while dining with my parents, my father noticed my somber expression and asked, Andrew, son, you haven't smiled in such a long time. What's going on? Unable to hold back, I recounted everything, the betrayal, the evidence, the heartache. His silence, deep and understanding, spoke louder than words. We all make mistakes, he said eventually, but remember, pain is temporary, and better things lie ahead. His words became a powerful motivator, urging me to move forward despite the wounds that had yet to heal. My close friend Maria, with whom I had shared both joy and sorrow over the years, also provided invaluable support. Andrew, I know you're in pain right now, she said as she embraced me after a meeting, but remember, You deserve to be with someone who truly loves you. I nodded silently, feeling her words like a warm beam of light piercing through the darkness. Over time, I began to piece my life back together. The divorce hearings, the division of our assets, and the legal battles were draining, yet I refused to let them define me. I returned to old hobbies, especially photography, a passion I had long neglected. Every time I picked up my camera, I felt as though a part of my soul was returning, capturing not only the beauty of the world around me, but also my inner journey toward healing. One day, while walking with our shared dog Toby, I ran into an old acquaintance, John. We stopped for a moment to catch up, and he asked, "Andrew, how are you holding up?" Looking him in the eyes, I managed a weak smile and said, "You know, John, I'm beginning to understand that this pain is also a part of my journey. I'm learning to let go, to forgive myself for not seeing the signs earlier." We talked at length about life, the importance of moving forward despite adversity, and the need to keep striving for a better future. Months passed, and as the wounds slowly began to heal, I unexpectedly met Hannah at one of the cafes I frequented after my runs. Her warm smile, genuine laughter, and caring demeanor immediately captured my attention. "Hi, I've seen you here a few times," she said, smiling as we stood in line for coffee. I wasn't sure why my heart started to beat faster. Perhaps it was just a chance encounter, or perhaps fate was giving me a second opportunity at happiness. Our conversation flowed naturally, and soon we found ourselves sharing our lives, our struggles, and our hopes. For the first time in a long while, I felt that I could trust someone again. Our meetings became more frequent, and with each encounter, I felt my faith and love slowly being restored. "Andrew," Hannah said one day as we sat in the park basking in the spring sunshine, "I see you've been through so much, and I want you to know, you deserve happiness." I gazed into her kind eyes and replied, "Thank you, Hannah. Your support means the world to me. Every day, I learn to live again, and maybe because of you, I can forgive the past and open my heart to new love." As time went on, I realized that the pain of betrayal was not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter. I looked back on the moments of suffering and understood that every tear, every sleepless night, was a lesson that led me to rediscover who I truly am. I often recall those solitary mornings when, running with Toby, I would think, today is a new day, a new chance to begin again. I poured my thoughts into my journal, questioning what truly mattered in life. Slowly, clarity emerged from the chaos. I came to understand that trust is not merely a word. It is the foundation upon which every relationship is built. And when that foundation is shattered, the world crumbles like a house of cards. Yet, perhaps through this collapse, one can find the path to renewal. I began to cherish moments of sincerity, warmth, friendship, and love all the more. One evening, as I sat on the porch of our old home, I murmured aloud, "I forgive you, Emily, not for you, but for myself. I forgive, so I can let go of this pain and give myself a chance at a new life." Those words became my liberation. I realized that clinging to the past was like swimming against the current, and true strength lay in moving forward, no matter what. Now, I gaze into the future with hope. Yes, the past has left deep scars, but I am learning to live with them, transforming pain into lessons. I no longer allow myself to drown in a sea of regrets and bitterness. Instead, I choose to accept life as it is, cherishing every moment, and with gratitude remembering all that I have endured, both the good and the bad. Every new day brings small joys. Morning runs with Toby, phone calls from friends, laughter shared with Hannah over the simplest things. I understand now that even in the darkest moments, if you allow yourself to believe, a spark of light can ignite a flame of a new beginning. Looking back, I see not only betrayal but also the moments when I discovered my own strength, when I managed to resist the bitterness and emerge from this ordeal wiser and more resilient. I learned to forgive, not to forget, but to free myself for the sake of welcoming genuine love into my heart. I write these words to remind myself and anyone else enduring such heartbreak that pain is temporary and the lessons it brings last a lifetime. The past may be an indelible chapter, one that cannot be erased, but it can be read with understanding and accepted as part of one's journey. I do not wish upon anyone the torment I experienced, but I truly believe that each of us is capable of finding the strength to start anew. Andrew, Hannah once said as we sat by the riverbank, "You are a remarkable person, and I know that happiness awaits you." I looked at her and softly replied, "Thank you, Hannah. Your kindness means so much. I'm beginning to believe that I can love again and be loved in return. Now, my life is a series of choices made each day. I choose to live, to love, to create, despite the lingering pain of the past. Perhaps one day I will look back and realize that everything I experienced prepared me to embrace a love that is honest and true. This story is not the end. It continues with every new day, every new encounter, every step along the path of healing. I firmly believe that even the darkest night will give way to a bright morning, full of opportunities and renewed hope. I, Andrew, am no longer the man who lived in fear and doubt. Now, I am free, and that freedom is the most precious gift I have ever received. Though the past remains, it has taught me to value every moment of the present. I choose to live in a way that leaves no room for lies and betrayal, where the melody of sincerity and love resounds in my heart. That's the end of our story. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to stay up to date on new stories and share this video so others can discover these great stories too.